The Islamic department in the museum has 2,000 exhibits. These are the Qurans, objects of decorative and applied arts, photographs, as well as works by Russian artists who linked their lives with Islamic culture. The museum received most of the objects related to Islam in 1947. Nevertheless, we managed to have a section devoted to Islam in the permanent exposition of the museum for a long time. In Russia, Muslim shrines were always treated with great respect. A document of 1779, the end of the 18th century, with a description of the book is preserved. It was compiled by Johann Beckmeister, librarian of the Imperial Library of the Russian Academy of Sciences. The description says, the noblest of the books are the Al-Qurans. Except for them, we have extracts from the Qurans with interpretation, several prayer books written in perfect beauty. Of course, only a man in love with the East could write such a text. The prize of the collection is a facsimile copy of the Great Muslim Shrine, a copy of one of the early manuscripts of the Quran, dated about first quarter of the 8th century. This folio is revered among the Muslims as the original list of the Quran, bloodstained of the Caliph Usman. The original is kept in Uzbekistan. It is a huge volume of 323 sheets with 12 text lines. Undoubtedly, every book, meaning the Quran, has its own fate, and the Usman's Quran is no exception.
Не избежал этой богатой судьбы во многом.
There are several versions of how the Usman Quran was brought to Uzbekistan. Some scholars believe that it was brought from Baghdad in the 10th century by the theologian Abu Bakr Kafal al-Shashi. Returning from the Mecca after the pilgrimage, he healed from the illness the Constantinople ruler and as a reward asked for the Usman Quran. According to the well-known Hungarian Orientalist Armin van Bury, traveling under the guise of a dervish through Central Asia, as early as 1863 in Samarkand, in the mausoleum of Amir Timur in the middle of the tomb, he saw, as he writes the Quran, on the skin of a gazelle. According to van Bury, he heard from many faithful people that this is the copy of that was written by the second caliph. The famous commander Timur brought with him the shrine from the treasure of the Turkish Sultan Bayezid in Bursa. Later, the Usman Quran was kept in the Hoja Ahrar Mosque of the Sheikh of the Sufi order who lived in the 15th century. In the 1870s, the original Usman Quran was taken from the Hoja Ahrar Mosque in Samarkand to Tashkent in the quarters of von Kaufmann, Governor-General of the Turkestan region, then to St. Petersburg, to the Imperial Public Library with the words, "It is necessary to take measures so that precious for science antiquity does not get out of hand." In 1905, the Russian Orientalists Uspensky and Pisarev made a facsimile copy of the original Quran, precisely reproducing the original. Here in St. Petersburg were issued 50 such facsimile copies. Some of them have remained in Russia, others have gone around the world. Such copies of the Usman Quran are kept in Istanbul, the Middle East, Central Asia, and even in the Columbia University of the United States. Here in the museum are stored 4 facsimile editions of the Usman Quran. In the late 19th century, it was kept in a non-Muslim area in St. Petersburg, and thank God, in 1924, it was returned first to Ufa and then to Tashkent, to its rightful place. In the archives of the museum, there is a unique photo of this historical event for Muslims. The museum's collection holds over 320 photographs related to Uzbekistan. They cover the period from the second half of the 19th century to the 1980s. The earliest of them were made by Samuel Dudin, as well as by Mikhail Masson and Vasily Vyatkin, outstanding researchers of the art history of Central Asia. In addition to the photographs of unique architectural monuments and numerous photographs of the Muslim community during the prayer at the beginning of the 20th century, the collection has rare photographs of the 1960s to 70s with the chairman of the spiritual administration of the Muslims of Central Asia and Kazakhstan, His Eminence Mufti Ziavuddin Han Babakhanov, who is extremely revered among the people to this day. The exposition of the Islam religion presents a variety of collections closely related to the cultural and religious traditions that existed at various stages of the history of Uzbekistan. We show you prizes of the collection, copies of the Usman Quran, archaeological monuments, and priceless archival photographs. No less interesting are the works of decorative and applied arts of Uzbekistan. These are objects closely connected both with religious cults and with the life of people. Of particular interest is the collection which is related to Sufism. This is the clothes from the Central Asian wandering dervishes. It was often decorated with embroidery despite the ascetic way of life, and the headdresses of cloth and velvet were embroidered with silk threads. The invariable attributes of dervishes were the vessels for collecting alms. They were called kashkuli or kadu. They were created from calabash, from coconut, and from metal. Metal kashkuli were decorated with embossing and engraving. In the East, the amulets cases, tumars, were extremely popular. There are the surahs from the Quran, and the benevolent inscriptions were laid. Exquisitely decorated with ornaments and inlaid with enamel, they were perceived as jewelry. Muslim consciousness also linked other types of decorative and applied arts of Uzbekistan with magical ideas. In this connection, we can fully explain the interest of the State Museum of the History of Religion in the creation of various collections. The magic of embroidery was in their patterns. They carried the symbolism of the spiritual life of people from ancient times. Flower motifs of Bukhara school or astral motifs of Samarkand, all of them carry the idea of goodwill and protection from evil eye. The formation of this collection began in the 1930s. This is mainly embroideries of the 19th, early 20th centuries. But perhaps the only kind of embroidery that has a direct bearing on the religion of Islam are joy namazes, or prayer rugs. This is a kind of microcosm, symbolically separating the believer during the prayer from the outside world. An obligatory detail is the image of the arch, the mihrab niche, the divine gates or so-called peculiar zone of the transition from the mortal world to the heaven world. A huge place in the museum staff work was devoted to the study of these objects and religion as a universal phenomenon of human culture. The museum's collection has a valuable exhibit, created in a Muslim environment but belonging to secular art. This is a gold-embroidered robe created in the workshops of the Emir of Bukhara. It dates back to the late 19th, early 20th century. In a museum documents, it is localized as a robe of the Emir of Bukhara. copper engraving and forged utensils, kungans of Toba and dastashui for ablution. Exquisite in form and ornament, they were necessary attributes of life in Central Asia. Copper workmasters perfectly do coining, forging, and inlaying with semi-precious stones.